The movie begins in a field of purple flowers. Two girl children running around, dancing, enjoying each other's company, playing hand games. One of the girls is obviously very pregnant. We learn their names are Celie and Nettie. Their daddy calls them back to the house for supper and tells Celie
Celie, you got the ugliest smile this side of creation.
Next scene, Celie is giving birth. Nettie is assisting her. The father walks in and says,
Ain't you done yet?
Celie births the baby and it's a girl. He immediately takes the baby away and tells her,
You better not never tell nobody but God. It'll kill your mama.
Celie narrates that she is 14. She reveals that she's already had a baby named Adam and now a girl named Olivia by him. And he took both of them away from her. Her mama died after finding out. Now he's starting to look at Nettie and Celie says she'll protect her with God's help. Sometime later, he marries a girl around her same age named Gray. A man keeps watching Nettie. This is Mr. And we learned that Mr.'s wife was killed by her boyfriend coming home from church. And Mr. has 3 children. Mr. comes to their house asking to marry Nettie, says he needs help running the farm and caring for his children. He wants a wife quickly. The father refuses to give Nettie.
I can't let you have Nettie. She's too young.
But instead, he offers Celie, saying she isn't afraid of hard work and that she's already been spoiled by having 2 children. Mr. says he's never looked at Celie before, and she's brought out and evaluated like property. Celie arrives at Mr.'s house. One of the kids, Harpo, throws a rock and hits her in the head. That night, they consummate their marriage. Next day, Celie cleans the kitchen. Mr. comes home and puts his dirty shoes on her clean table. She is combing the daughter's hair. The child is crying, and Celie asks when the last time her hair was combed. Mr. says not since her mama did it. He tells Celie to quiet the child. When she says it hurts the girl, he slaps Celie and orders her to do as he says. One day in town, Celie sees her baby girl with another woman. She learns the child is living with a reverend and his wife. Celie holds the baby and quietly studies her, wondering if she's her own. She asks the woman the baby's name and she gives some random answer but says that she calls her Olivia, which is the same name that Celie gave her before she was taken away from her. Next day, Nettie shows up at the house. She says she couldn't keep their father away from her and she's asking can she stay for a while. Mr. agrees, saying they're family now. He begins complimenting Nettie and focusing on her appearance. That night, the sisters joke about him. Celie says Nettie will need to leave before he tries to cross another line. They already understand what usually comes next. As time passes, Nettie teaches Celie how to read. Mr. watches closely. Celie begins reading Oliver Twist for a short while. Things seem calm, though the tension never leaves. One day, Nettie is walking to school. Mr. follows her on a horseback. He sings, dances, and behaves inappropriately. He tries to pull her into the bushes, but Nettie fights him off and runs away. Back at the house, Mr. packs Nettie's things up and throws her out, telling her she can never return. Celie begs Nettie to write. Nettie says, They play hand games one final time before Nettie leaves. Next day, Celie is shaving Mr. He is in a good mood because Suge is coming to visit. He warns Celie not to cut him. Children are running around everywhere. Celie accidentally cuts him just as the mailman arrives. Mr. rushes to the mailbox, hoping for a letter from Suge. Celie asks if there's a mail from Nettie. He explodes and tells her never to touch the mailbox. He says he's going to town and expects supper ready when he returns. Celie sits down and reads Oliver Twist. Time passes and the film transitions to an older Celie. Celie is older now. Mr. is still treating her like the help and blaming her for his own mistakes. At one point, Mr. rides off on his horse with some flowers like he's doing something meaningful. Sometime later, Harpo starts dating a woman named Sophia and she's pregnant. They come to Mr. to ask for his blessing so they can get married. Mr. is rude, as usual, accusing Sophia of trying to use Harpo. Sophia fires back and says she doesn't need him or Harpo. But they end up getting married after the first baby is born. Sophia and Harpo move into a new house. Mr. gives Harpo some garbage advice and tells him to beat Sophia. Harpo tries to assert himself by telling Sophia he needs something to eat, like she isn't out here plowing the fields. Harpo asks Celie what he should do about Sophia and Celie says, beat her. Absolutely trash. Next day, Sophia runs up on Celie and says,
You told Harpo to beat me.
But it looks like Harpo got his ass beat. Sophia and Harpo keep fighting, have several kids in between, and eventually Sophia can't take it anymore and she leaves. One night, Mr. shows up with Suge Avery. She immediately disrespects Celie and says,
You show is ugly.
This bitch. It looks like Suge is detoxing or getting over some kind of illness. Next day, Mr. tries to cook breakfast for Suge and can't work the oven or the knives. Celie just sits there watching. When Mr. goes to get this kerosene, Celie runs. He brings the food to Suge and she throws it out of the room. Celie cooks her breakfast instead and takes it to her. Suge eats all of it. Celie helps her bathe and they start talking. Suge opens up about trauma involving her father. Celie brushes her hair and hums songs with her. That night, Mr.'s daddy shows up unexpectedly. He's rude as hell, just like Mr., talking down on Suge. He calls her a juke joint woman, says she has kids by different men, says her own daddy doesn't even want her, and calls her a hoe. Oddly enough, he shows Celie sympathy.
Celie, you has my sympathy. Ain't many women's allow their husbands hoe to lay up in their house.
As time goes on, Harpo and his friends start building a juke joint. When it opens, Suge starts performing and is clearly in her element. She sings Miss Celie's Blues, a song dedicated to Celie.
Sister, you've been on my mind. Oh, sister.
After the song, Sophia shows up with a new man. Harpo and Sophia start dancing. Another woman asks Harpo,
Harpo, who this woman?
then hits Sophia unprovoked.
You just a big old heifer.
Like I say, fine with me.
A fight breaks out. Honestly, this whole juke joint sequence is some of the best stuff in this movie. Later that night, Suge and Celie bond. Suge says she'll be leaving soon. We find out Suge called Celie ugly earlier because she was jealous of Celie's relationship with Mr. Suge and Celie end up kissing and a new relationship starts. This seems to be the first time that Celie actually feels loved and wanted. The scene ends and I'm definitely wondering if they had relations. Next day, Suge goes to visit her father at the church. He barely acknowledges her and doesn't speak back, so she leaves. Soon after, we hear that Suge is going back to Memphis. Celie wants to go with her and says it's her only chance to get the fuck up out of here. When the day comes, Celie can't even bring herself to say it. She just says she's going to miss her. Suge leaves. Celie collapses on the ground, visibly devastated. We flash to Sophia in the middle of town with her kids. A random white woman, the mayor's wife, starts to touching on her children, kissing them all up in their faces. She tells Sophia her kids are so clean and offers her a job as her maid. Sophia says,
Hell no.
her husband steps in, hits Sophia, and Sophia hits him right back. Just then, a swarm of white people jump in, pissed because she hit a white man. The police show up and knock her in the head with a gun handle. Sophia is arrested. She's in jail for a long time, and when she gets out, she ends up working for that same white woman as her maid anyways. Sophia looks run down as hell. The white woman's name is Miss Millie, and she promised Sophia that she'll take her home to see her kids and let her stay all day for the holidays. The next day, she drives her out there, but Sophia only gets a few seconds with her kids. It's been about 8 years. Miss Millie panics because she can't figure out how to put the car in reverse, and they leave almost immediately. Sometime later, Suge shows up with her new husband, Grady. While Mr. and Grady bond, Suge goes to get the mail and sees her daddy. She tells him she's married now.
I say I'm married now.
And he pulls off fast. Suge runs inside, pulls Celie upstairs, and hands her a letter. They read it together. Nettie is alive. She's been living with the Reverend and his wife, and they have Celie's kids, Adam and Olivia. They wait for Mr. and Grady to go outside, then go looking for Nettie's letter. They find them under the footboard in his room. Celie starts reading Nettie's letters. Nettie tells her that she went to Africa as a Christian missionary. She talks about the forests, animals, gender inequality, men building roads through villages, and sickness that took Pauline, the Reverend's wife, away. While Celie is reading, Mr. walks in and smacks her in the face, demanding she shave him. Celie sharpens the razor. It's tense as hell. Suge runs towards the house. I'm thinking she's about to cut his ass. Celie raises the razor, but Suge grabs her arm and stops her just in time. Damn, she was this close. We jump to a Sunday dinner. Sophia is there, quiet and clearly traumatized. Suge announces she's leaving, and Celie is going with her. Celie finally goes off, calls Mr. some horseshit. Sophia laughs for the first time in forever.
Sat in that jail down there about done rot to death.
Mr. says Celie ain't getting none of his money. Squeak speaks up and says her name is Mary Agnes and she's leaving with Suge to try singing. Mr. starts insulting Celie, saying she can't cook or clean. Old Mr. joins in, instigating. Celie picks up a knife and threatens Mr. He's shook. He says she's black, she's poor, she's ugly, and she's a woman. He's big mad. He curses her as she leaves. Celie leaves on the train, and we see Mr. alone, working the fields, looking old and worn down. Animals everywhere. Old Mr. shows up and finds him drunk on the floor. He says Mr.'s drinking and letting the house go. Mr. says he's lonely, no kids laughing, no one there. Old Mr. says he needs a young woman, but Mr. immediately kicks him out. That night at the juke joint, Harpo and Sophia are working. Mr. says it's nice to see them together again. Everyone is shocked. Later, Celie learns the man she thought was her father wasn't her real father. He married her mother 2 years after her real dad died. At the funeral, his current wife tells Celie that he died on top of her. Does that remind y'all of anybody? She also tells Celie the house and land belong to Celie and Nettie, but she gets to keep the money. We flash forward. Celie opens a pants shop. Mr. sits outside waving. She ignores him. At the juke joint, music plays. Then church music overtakes it. Suge and her crew walk to church. Suge sings as she enters. Her father is shocked but finally forgives her. Tears all around. Mr. gets mail from Immigration and Naturalization Services. He goes to the courthouse and fills out paperwork. Sometime later, a car pulls up to Celie's house. The whole family is there. It's Nettie. They run to each other and embrace. Nettie introduces her children. They don't speak English, having grown up in Africa. We see Mr. watching from his farm. For once, he did something right. The sisters play hand games together, finally reunited. And that's the end of the movie. Our first character is Celie, who is played by Whoopi Goldberg for a majority of the movie. In the book, it says that she was abused from childhood, but she survives by staying quiet and being invisible. She writes letters to God as her only outlets. She endures abuse from both her stepfather and her husband, but she doesn't fight back. She ends up bonding with Suge Avery, and that helped her develop self-worth and explore her sexuality and a new view of God. When she finds Nettie's letters, she ends up reclaiming her identity, and she finally stands up to her husband. She ends up building independence through sewing and starting her own business, and in the end she ends up fulfilled, confident, and reunited with her family. Next we have Nettie, who is Celie's younger sister, and it's played by Akusa Busia. She ends up taking on a protective role early in life. She's very intelligent, committed to her education, and she sees it as a way out of the abuse that they endure in the household. She was forced out of Celie's life by Mr. and she sent letters to try to stay connected, but Mr. hides them from Celie. She uses letter writing as her primary outlet and means of survival. She ends up leaving home and gains a global perspective through missionary work, but she encounters systemic oppression across race, gender, and culture. Ultimately, she regains her voice and reconnects with Celie on her own terms. Next we have Mr., whose name is Albert Johnson, which they rarely mention his real name in the movie, but he's played by Danny Glover. In the book, he was raised with a very rigid, misogynistic worldview, and it normalized control and violence. He enters marriage with Celie, seeing her as property rather than a partner. He uses physical abuse and emotional neglect as control. He also hides Nettie's letters from Celie for many years. He is the main antagonist of the book and the movie, and he is confronted once Celie finally develops some self-worth and stands up for herself. When he's left alone, he ends up reassessing his past actions and personal failures. And in the book, it says that once Celie determined that he had changed his ways, they do end up enjoying conversing and sewing together. And he expresses his desire to have a mutually respectful marriage with Celie, but she, of course, declines. Next, we have Suge Avery, and she's played by Margaret Avery. In the book, she's introduced through rumor as immoral, sick, and socially rejected, basically saying she has the nasty woman disease, which I'm assuming is an STD, which we find out that the rumor was actually started by her own parents. Celie meets Suge and sees her as glamorous and more of a mother figure, and throughout the book, she compares Suge to her mother often. But unlike Celie's biological mother, Suge was not oppressed by traditional gender roles, and Suge refused to allow herself to be dominated by someone else. Shug was described as sexy, quick-witted, and slightly jaded due to her world experiences, but we find out that she's actually warm and very compassionate. In the book, when Shug falls ill, she appreciates Celie, helping her recuperate, and she ends up becoming Celie's teacher, protector, lover, and emotional support. Harpo, or Harpo Johnson, who was played by Willard E. Pugh, he is the son of Mr. and his first wife. He loses his mother violently when she is unalived by her affair partner and dies in Harpo's arms. He doesn't really see Celie as a mother figure, but he does come to her for advice about women and romance. He ends up marrying Sophia, and at his core, he's good-hearted, sensitive, but he's surrounded by misogyny, which begins to cause issues in his marriage. Unfortunately for him, Sophia is not a submissive wife, although she is an excellent partner and a mother. He begins to get irritated by her refusal to obey and cower to him, and he begins to beat her in an attempt to dominate her and control her. But Sophia fights back and often wins against Harpo while physically injuring him. Becoming the dominant person in the relationship starts a obsession for Harpo, and he even attempts to make himself physically larger in order to beat Sophia by consuming large amounts of food, and eventually the obsession ends up destroying their marriage. As Harpo grew older, he found himself without a female partner and became more comfortable fulfilling the feminine role of parenting and housekeeping. And it said that both Harpo and Mr. learned to let go of their entitlement and patriarchal values that had been holding them back from genuine relationships with women. And because of this change, him and Sophia are able to rekindle their relationship later on in life. Even though Harpo attempted to find a more docile partner in Squeak, he still ended up back with Sophia. Sophia Butler, played by Oprah Winfrey. She is the wife of Harpo. She's very confident and she's healthy and young. She ends up getting pregnant by Harpo, and she marries him against the wishes of Mr. Their marriage is described as genuinely containing love. However, the relationship deteriorates when Harpo starts beating on Sophia and she fights back. She is described as not wanting to take abuse from anyone, and that ends up landing her in jail and in service to a white family. But she embodies strength and independence throughout the book. It says once she left Harpo, she began living with her sister and ended up getting with a less controlling significant other. It says that that lover was taken away due to racial violence and he was lynched. And Sophia, who refused the demands of a white couple, is also beaten and imprisoned. She ends up losing over a decade of her life, and her relationship with her young children was lost forever. It's said that in the book, Celie learns from Sophia and Shug how to assert her independence against Mr. Squeak, or Mary Agnes, who's played by Ray Dawn Chong. She becomes Harpo's girlfriend after Sophia leaves him. She's very submissive to Harpo, and the nickname Squeak is supposed to be an indication of how timid and obedient that she is. But in the book, it says that Harpo doesn't respect Squeak, although he wanted somebody that was codependent and submissive. Squeak ends up realizing that Harpo still has feelings for Sophia despite their separation, but Squeak is kind, and when she hears about Sophia being arrested, she does everything that she can, which included allowing herself to be essayed to save Sophia from what would have been a fatal prison sentence. Early in the relationship between Harpo and Squeak, Celie encourages Squeak to make Harpo call her by her real name, but it takes her a long time to gather the courage to speak up. She ends up gaining more self-sufficiency and confidence. Squeak ends up learning about opportunities that are available to her outside of just men, and she ends up going on tour with Shug, wanting to try her hand at singing. At the end of the novel, though, Squeak is living in Panama with Grady, making good money from their Mary Jane farm. Alfonso is Celie and Nettie's stepfather, who takes over raising them after their mother dies. The girls are unaware that he's not their biological father, which ends up causing them severe emotional trauma because he abuses both of his stepdaughters. He begins to assault Celie when her mother falls ill and no longer can physically have relations with him. After multiple assaults, Celie becomes pregnant. She gives birth and he takes the baby away from her immediately. Celie assumes that he killed the child, but it's later revealed that he gave the baby, as well as has the second child to the Reverend and his wife. Not long after the birth of the first child, Seeley's mother ends up passing away, leaving the two daughters under his full control with no one to protect them. After Seeley's last pregnancy, Alfonso grows tired of her and begins taking interest in Nettie, but Seeley's able to keep him away from her by actively encouraging her abuse instead. Mr. inquires about taking Nettie for a wife, but Alfonso convinces him to take Seeley instead, saying that she'll be more hardworking and dedicated. The only thing that Seeley ever receives from him is the rights to the house he inherited after her mother's death. So here are the key points that were different or important to know from the book. Seeley was 14 years old at the beginning of the book. They are all in rural Georgia. Alfonso, the stepfather, marries a new woman prior to Seeley leaving, but he continues to abuse her after bringing the new wife home. Mr. doesn't immediately accept Seeley as his wife. It actually takes him months to agree to marrying her. The portion of the movie where Seeley gets hit with the rock and then is untangling the stepdaughter's hair and cooking dinner, that all occurred in one day on her wedding day. Mr. has two sisters named Kate and Carrie, who are very nice to Seeley. Mr's sister, Kate, encourages Seeley to fight back and advocates for her getting new clothing. Seeley feels regret for telling Harpo to beat Sophia. She ends up having insomnia for a month after and confesses that she is jealous of how Sophia is able to defend herself. Suge's illness when she came for the first time to Mr's house is most likely from an STD. Mr. has a brother named Tobias. Both Tobias and old Mr. disagree with Suge staying at the house with Mr. and Seeley. Sophia ended up getting broken ribs and a fractured skull after getting arrested for hitting the white man. Squeak is the niece of the white prison warden. So at one point she ends up dressing like a white woman and goes to try to convince the prison warden to release Sophia, but instead he brutally SAs her. Squeak helps Sophia with the mayor's children when she is released to work as the mayor's maid. Grady, who is Suge's husband, rubs Seeley the wrong way because he's flamboyant and spending Suge's money. Nettie also traveled to New York and was able to spend time in Harlem amongst liberated black people prior to going to Africa with the Reverend and his wife. Seeley plots to leave Mr. when Nettie returns to Georgia. Corinne, the Reverend's wife, begins to suspect that Nettie is trying to get with Samuel, the Reverend, and the native Africans think that Nettie is the Reverend's other wife, so she asks Nettie to stop letting the kids call her Mama Nettie, to stop inviting the Reverend into her hut alone, which is suspicious, and she no longer wants to wear each other's clothing so they don't get it mixed up. Nettie, while in Africa, becomes upset that the Africans fail to acknowledge even partial responsibility for the slave trade and begins to feel they are self-centered like white Americans. Seeley confronts Alfonso, which is her stepfather, and he reveals that he is the stepfather. Sophia is released from servitude from being the mayor's maid after 11 and a half years, but now her kids are older, married, and scattered, and her younger kids don't remember her. Harpo and Squeak end up having a daughter named Susie Q. When Seeley left Georgia, they ended up moving to Memphis to Suge's house. The funeral that Seeley went to was for Sophia's mother, not Alfonso, but she does learn that he passed away while she was there and therefore gets her house and the land. We learned that her father was also lynched. We learned that Nettie did end up marrying Samuel, the Reverend, so Corinne, his late wife, was right to worry. Adam, Seeley's son, marries a woman named Tashi, who was friends with Olivia. Suge wants to have a fling with a man 1/3 her age, which hurts Seeley and ends up allowing her to forgive Mr. Seeley ends up hiring Sophia to work in her clothing store. Suge ends her fling with the younger man and returns to Georgia and becomes upset because Seeley is now cordial with Mr. And at some Now here are my final thoughts on this movie. I feel like Seeley and Nettie were put in a really shitty situation. And typically I would look to their mother and wonder why she chose to marry Alfonso after their father passed away. But since this movie was set in 1935, women weren't able to do much of anything on their own without a man present. So I can understand her marrying Alfonso. Also her not being able to protect her daughters because she was sick. And it didn't say exactly what the illness was, but it was bad enough where she wasn't able to have physical relations with her husband anymore, which is what made him go after Seeley in the first place. I feel like a lot of times in relationships, men see not only the woman they're with, but also the children they have as property. That does not urge them to assault them, but I think that probably is part of the reason why he felt entitled to Ceely's body. And I think that's quite unfortunate. And I think that still happens now, where men feel entitled to not only the woman's body, but to whatever the children can offer them as well. I mean, this reminds me of that one podcast where the guy was like talking to the single mom, and he was like, well, what can the kids offer me? What can they provide for me? And I think that's just a disgusting worldview to have as a man, or, you know, even as a woman, if you're gonna date somebody with children. And if you know that's who you are, you should probably not date someone with children and date somebody that does not have children. But I feel like a lot of times, men especially will go after a woman that is more vulnerable because she's a little bit easier to control than maybe a woman that's more independent financially or doesn't have children that's holding her back from doing what she wants to do. With that being said, I do have a heart for Harpo. In the book and in the movie, I think that he had a chance to not be misogynistic, but the only male influences that he had, which were his father and probably the people around him, showed him that you weren't really a man unless you dominated the woman you were with, beat her into submission, and she was a shell of herself, which he tried to do with Sophia, and Sophia fought him back and won a lot of the time. And I think it's interesting, especially at the end of the movie, you see that Harpo and Sophia do get back together after Harpo kind of calms that shit down. But you see at the end that Harpo is amongst the family that's surrounding Ceely at her house. And if you look, it's nothing but children and women. And then I think Harpo, I don't think I saw any other men that were present. Something that we can get out of this scene is that once Harpo released the misogyny and actually saw it from a woman's point of view, that he was more able to receive love from the people around him and cut off the negative misogynistic people. I also see that Mr. finally took a turn for the best at the end, but it took him like abusing Ceely for years on years, and her finally leaving him and him being alone without children and just a drunkard, and having to have Harpo help him into health for him to change his ways. And I don't feel like men or women or whoever that needs to change their way needs to wait that long. Wait until their body's falling apart. Wait till they're old and lonely to change their misogynistic, patriarchal thought processes. I think this was kind of like a warning to not only women, now that we have more independence, we're not going to get sold off by our fathers, to choose a path in life that makes us happier. And also for men, a warning that if you do choose to go the route of misogyny and dominance and abuse in order to assert that dominance and unnecessary control, then this could be what happens to you. It reminds me of working in healthcare. You see a lot of older people, and a lot of times the men are lonely. But I can't help to think to myself, I wonder how he was when he was younger. How did he treat his children? How did he treat his wife, if he had one? Because you don't end up lonely for no apparent reason. You know what I mean? It's always about choices. And I think that is kind of what ended up happening with Mr. is that his life choices finally caught up to him. And yeah, it's cool when you're young, you're strong, you can bounce back. But the older you get, the more frail you get, the more you're going to realize that those relationships that you bombarded when you were younger may actually have been something that might have brought you joy later on in life. But anyways, yeah, that's pretty much my thought process behind this movie and the book. I feel like all of this was a really good storytelling on Alice Walker's point of view. And even the movie, I know a lot of people were upset that the movie didn't include certain things. But I mean, when you're creating a movie from a book, you can't include every little detail. Like, you have to change some things and, you know, keep it moving for the plot. But I do think that they did pretty good at, you know, keeping the story pretty much the same. Now, some things were left out, and obviously I said that earlier in this video, but overall, I think they did a really good job. I give this movie I say a 10 out of 10. I would watch it again. I think it's pretty good. And it came out in 1985, so I wasn't even born when this was out, but I remember watching it as a child and being like, ew, like hating Mr. for a long time. I mean, Danny Glover got all that smoke, honey. It's like some movies where the villain is so good that you can't look at them the same. It reminds me of Michael Ealy And for Color Girls, like, I can't ever look at him the same. Every time I see him, I'm like, you dropped those kids out that window. How could you do that? Even though I know it's a movie, but I'm telling you, some people just play the hell out of these roles. And I think that Danny Glover did a great job in playing the hell out of this role. Anyways, that's the end of this video. I don't know when the next video will be. I've kind of been like dropping these as soon as I can. There is no schedule right now, just based on my energy, because sometimes I feel like doing it and sometimes I don't. But I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you. Bye.